Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I'm your host, Tim Matthews, with my co-host, Mo Parks. And the crowd goes wild. Yay! Everyone's going to be like, oh, Doug sounds a bit different. It's not Doug. So Mo is one of the advisors. So just to give you guys a little bit of backstory, if you're new to the show or to the Powerful Man. So when somebody is inquiring about the possibility of whether the activation method might be able to help them, what they will do is book in for a breakthrough call. And on the breakthrough call, they will speak to an advisor, somebody who is experienced with the problem that the men are facing, who can then advise them on the best path forward. It might be with us, it may not, right? At which point the guys can just make a decision on whether or not it's for them, right? So anyway, Mo is here. And Mo, I wanted to pull you in because obviously you're a woman, obviously. And I love the angle that you're able to come into these advisory calls with, right? Because you're able to talk to the men from a woman's perspective. It's one thing having Ryan or myself or Doug speak to the problem, right? From a man's perspective, it's another one coming out from a woman's perspective as well. So I appreciate you taking the time out. I know you've got a busy day, a big family, a husband. You could be doing many things, but you're choosing to be here with us. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Love it.
Yeah. So do you want to quickly just introduce yourself a little bit then? Obviously, I alluded to you having a big family and a husband, but just give the guys a bit of background as to who you are and why you are part of the Powerful Man team.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Mo, married, have 4 children under the age of 7. So lots of busyness, lots of things to do in my day. Love working for the Powerful Man. It's created an environment of awesome growth for me. It's created an environment that helps me thrive as a person, in my marriage, as a mom, in a lot of ways. And I guess what drew me in was really starting to help the world rebuild marriages, rebuild lives, rebuild men. And the reason for that is I just see a lot of that brokenness in the world. And instead of fueling that brokenness, I want to make an impact in creating change and moving in positive directions so that less kids can go broken and we can be redeeming generations as we heal ourselves.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, we talk a lot about the mission, the mission that we have as a team, right? Is to put ourselves out of business. And people think, I don't believe that. I'm not buying it. And the idea there is that obviously if we do a good enough job with this generation of men, then their sons are not going to need an alpha reset, right? They're not going to need the activation method. Obviously, we can choose to then find other ways to serve and impact the world, right? But in theory, this particular avenue wouldn't be needed. So I love that you bring that up. So I want to talk about leadership, right? Because you advise and speak with a lot of men. And I think the idea of leadership when it comes to marriage and the role that a man plays can sometimes be a bit misunderstood and a bit vague. And, I think it's one that all men crave, is to be the leader within the relationship, at least feel that way, right?
Yeah.
But I also think it's one that a lot of men struggle to actually understand from a woman's perspective of what does that look like for her? Mm-hmm. What does that provide her with? Right? So I think it'd be good to start there. I'm kind of curious, how would you define leadership? Within particular, the leadership, what it means for your husband to lead within the marriage.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. We could go a lot of ways with leadership because everyone has their own general connotation of what a leader is and what that looks like, whether it's based on, previous leaders in their life. But for me, and I'd say for women in general, I don't want to speak for an entire gender, but I would say, with leadership, what women are ultimately looking for when we say we want a leader is safety, is emotional safety. And, in a room of 10,000 people, probably you could ask, who is of the women who has felt unsafe in the past 30 days. And you'd probably get 90% of women raising their hand. You ask the men, probably like 5 to 10. Actually, this happened at a conference I went to, and it was astounding. I just didn't realize how common women felt unsafe. And I think the reason for that is because safety creates everything for women. It creates love, it creates openness, it creates vulnerability, whether that's physical vulnerability or emotional vulnerability. And I think that it's like this kept secret that sometimes even women don't know. And it's why they take the step up in leadership in the relationship. It's because they don't know how desperately they need safety and they want it. But I think what safety looks like, what leadership looks like, which is almost synonymous for safety for women, is, so what does it look like for a man to lead? I think what it starts with is leading themselves well. Women don't want to follow a man who doesn't lead himself well. And when I say that, a lot of people are like, yeah, just, be the partner you want to have. No, because you could have shit standards for yourself. And I just don't see that as really what leadership looks like. But I think when you look at leadership, you can look at it from a woman's perspective of like emotionally, physically, psychologically, and spiritually, how a man keeps himself, how he holds himself, and how he works on himself. And, what that tends to look like and how that plays out is a man is honest instead of hiding they take ownership instead of blaming, they have self-respect instead of rolling over and being the nice guy. And ultimately, like taking care of themselves. And what leadership looks like is working on the places, like being a man and working on the places of where and why they are still becoming the boy in the relationship. And I can feel when leadership, I guess, is off in our personal relationship, when I feel like that self-work isn't happening and I begin to lose hope in that safety and I begin to pull back because I don't feel that safety. And I think the reason why men working on themselves makes women feel so safe is probably because when they want to know that when things go bad, you have a place where you can work on it to make it better. And, when things start to hurt in the relationship, we know, oh, well, it's okay because he's going to be working on himself. He's going to be getting better. He's going to be moving forward. But in any case where we don't feel that's leadership is there, then we withdraw and it hurts. And it feels like, man, maybe I didn't choose the right person. Maybe, there's all this self-doubt and uncertainty that's creeping in because honestly, we're tending to mirror what the guy is doing, which is, when they're not leading, what are they doing? They're creating uncertainty, insecurity, helplessness. And then we begin to feel that. So the reality might be you're leading no matter if you mean to or not. Right. You're doing something. So yeah, I think that's a general summary, I think, of what leadership looks like to me, maybe to women.
And would you say that's, obviously you can't speak for every woman, but would you say that's kind of a fair assessment of what it'd be like for most women?
Yeah, 100%. I have a lot of friends and they mostly say that's true.
Wow. That's incredible. So when you talk about emotional safety, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess emotional safety to me looks like knowing that things are going to be okay, knowing that there's someone who's going to assure me of that while I'm also assuring myself of that. This isn't just like a let them go, but creating emotional safety is, something that women have to, partially do and not themselves, but it's, if you're creating an environment of emotional safety, then you feel free, you feel open, you feel vulnerable, you feel willing to accept love, you feel willing to let go of control. I think that's a big one. I think a lot of guys think, well, I don't want to leave because she's, just taking care of the whole home. But the reality is she's not feeling emotionally safe. That's why she's taking over. That's why she's controlling, because she doesn't feel like anyone else is going to do it.
Wow, that's huge. Because I know for some guys that I've spoken to, and probably even you too, it's so easy to think that they're doing all the right things by going out there and just working hard, right? I'll take care of the money side of things, right? And kind of, for the most part, society has taught this as well, right? Guys go out there and do that. And then leave the woman to be the homemaker a lot of the time, but not realizing the impact of that, right? Because one, it was interesting. I read a fascinating study. I've mentioned this before. It was all about what makes for a happy life, right? And this guy was talking about how he was told 3 things make for a happy life. One is to be married. And he looked into that, whether that was true or not. And what he found overall, yeah, being married generally does make people happier, or being in a long-term committed relationship because of partnership. You can share memories, you can do things together, right? The other one was he had to make a lot of money. And as he studied this, he found out that, do you know what? Yeah, money up until a point provided increased levels of happiness. And it was usually about 75K a year take home. Anything above that, the increases in the dollar amount above that were not proportionate to any increases in happiness. At that point, it becomes really important to have fulfillment and meaning in your work and other things as well, right?
Yeah.
The third thing was kids. You've got to have kids. And the interesting thing about this was that for most people, that was true for men. There was a segment of women where kids actually made them unhappier. And the reason for that was because they felt like they were giving up their identity and they gave up themselves, which is back to the point of the guy going out. This is what society often tells us, right? The guy goes out, I'm doing all the right things to make the money, provide financially, can leave the woman at home. She kind of can lose her identity. She then starts to rise because she doesn't feel emotionally safe, like you've said. So she's wanting to gain some level of safety through taking control, which gives certainty.
Mm-hmm.
All the while he's thinking that's what's supposed to happen. Yeah, it's just creating this distance between them. And then as the guy continues to sacrifice himself, right, and pours all his efforts into work, and maybe stops working out, maybe stops doing the things that maybe even attracted her to him in the first place. He then stops investing in his own growth, right? To your point, that's where it then worries her more. Hang on a minute, he's not taking responsibility. He's not showing me it's going to be okay. His actions and his energy aren't assuring me of these things, right? And then at that point, the men fall into a rut. The woman's fallen into a rut. There's no leadership. There's this massive distance between them both. And usually at that point, that's when the guys will reach out to us. It's kind of shocking when you paint the picture of it that way.
Yeah.
So apart from emotional safety, what does leadership provide you with as a woman?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it provides you with a sense of confidence, trust, provides you with hope. Because you know things are going to progress, they're going to move forward. Because ships don't move without a captain. There's this reality that if you create leadership in the home, there is a confidence that you know where you're going. Creates vision. It creates productivity, effectiveness, like effective productivity. I think there's a lot of like emotional things that happen in leadership, but then there's just like logistics of leadership, that it takes a burden off of the women if the men are leading. Like, hey, this is a small example, but like constantly asking me what I want to do this weekend is just stressing me out. Just plan something and or give me 3 options, and do something that you've heard me talk about. Then it feels like you're listening to me. Then it feels like you're moving in that direction. And when, say, that situation occurs, I get in the car to go to that place and I feel relieved because it's like, I didn't have to plan anything. I didn't have to do anything. This is nice, and just this freedom of like, now I can enjoy my family. I can enjoy my kids. And I think that's like a setting of like, man, it's not just you served me. It's that you led. Like those are different. And I think it creates those things.
I'm guessing if you're then in that place where it's like, wow, I can just show up. I don't have to think about things. I can just enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing you then feel relaxed.
Yeah.
Which I imagine can then start to pave the way for more levels of intimacy and attraction, polarity, essentially. Because if you relax, You go into your feminine and he stays where he is doing his thing. He's then masculine, creates the polarity, masculine, feminine, right?
Yeah.
Which can then pave the way. Well, I'm guessing you tell me it paves the way for the intimacy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, on a relaxed day where my husband is leading, where he's, he's having open conversations about his own personal growth, there's a way higher likelihood that there will be more things happening in the bedroom than there would have been if it hadn't been there.
And I'd love to give credit to the fact that most husbands been through the powerful man, but it hasn't. He's just one of those. Can you call men unicorns? No, I'm sure he does a lot of work on himself.
Yeah, he does.
I know he will if he's with you.
Yeah. Let's be real.
But yeah, he's doing a lot right, and I love the explanation you're giving, because this is a lot of people ask as well. Just tell me how it works, right? Because we tell them when they come in. And it makes sense. We tell them about the activation method and the 3 pillars of the live as a king and the hidden motives and the clean slate, which we'll talk about another time. But I think if you are listening and maybe you've spoken to one of the advisors and you've asked yourself that question, but how does it work? Tell me how it actually works. This is how the live as a king system works. These are the underlying emotions, the underlying current and theory that underpins it. And this is what goes on in a relationship when you start to do this. And obviously it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I'm guessing consistency is important with this for you.
Oh yeah, that's a big piece, actually. Let me speak to that for a second. You have no leadership if you don't have consistency, because the essence of leadership is knowing that it's always going to be there. Now, that's not saying you have to be perfect. It's not saying, in any way that you have to, have it all together. But there's a way to lead. When you mess up, there's still a way to lead, whether that's taking ownership and moving to the next level. But yeah, I'd say consistency is because it's so tightly knitted to safety. You don't feel safe in an inconsistent environment. You feel safe. I mean, it's just like kids, they did a study with kids where you put them into an open room and they tend to show higher amounts of stress. And then you put the same kids in the same room, but put a gate area around it. And it's because the consistency of boundaries, their stress levels were lowered. And what that means to me is it says safety is created through 1, boundaries, and 2, that consistency. And so, I think that that's a huge key and piece to leadership that I probably didn't hit on.
Yeah, and you raise a great point. We're not looking for you to be perfect, right? Back to your point earlier, take responsibility, be honest, have open conversations, just be growing, because then we know if things go wrong, which inevitably they will, then you're going to have the open-mindedness to actually look at your part in it and how it's working and fix it, right? Which by default creates safety. And like you said, consistency, right? I love what you said before. You're always leading, whether you know it or not. And it's kind of like you're always being consistent, whether you know it or not. You're either consistently lacking in leadership, and that's the thing that you become known for from your wife, that you're just not going to lead, right? In which case, that's when she'll just take charge of what to do at a weekend without even maybe sharing anything. She'll just take charge of other decisions, right? Without even running them by you. She'll just stop running them by you because it slows her down. It's kind of pointless. You're not going to get any input or decision from
her. And then she'll get pissed and stressed that she had to do it.
Yeah. So you're going to be consistent. It's such an important insight, I think. You're already leading and you're already being consistent. It's just a case of which way is it working for you. It's either going to work for you or against you. It's just a natural dynamic, it seems, that you're describing. It's just that at play in every relationship, consciously or unconsciously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what would your advice be if you could leave the listeners, right, with 3 takeaways, 3 things to do from this? We've got a guy that's listening to this, is experiencing some issues in his marriage. Maybe there's arguments. Maybe his wife is starting to check out. He resonates with the fact that, you know what, I'm not leading. How would you recommend that he starts leading from here on out? What would you suggest that he does? 3 things that he can walk away from here with.
Three things that he could walk away doing. One, take care of yourself, meaning I would say this is created from vision, right? So picture the absolute best version of a husband that you could possibly be. And from that, create it. Whether that's, getting the help you need to work on something psychologically, or working on past wounds, or, going to someone who's better than you at this marriage thing. Do whatever it takes to work on you. Because if you do it for her and to get her back, then you're pushing her away 100%. So the first thing is lead yourself well. Lead yourself well by seeing how you're showing up as the broken version of yourself instead of the guy that you envision. The second thing I would say, create a peer group and men around you that can hold you accountable to being that version of yourself. Again, back to safety. Women feel safe when a man is surrounded by men who are helping him move to the next level. And I'm not talking about the dudes whose marriages are sucking. I'm talking about the dudes whose marriages are thriving. And then, it's just so hard because I'm like, I would tell you to join the activation method. That's really because you're going to have the tools and system to create a lot of this. And then I guess the third one would be create an environment in your home of yourself, of being vulnerable and open about where you're at. Because if worse comes to worse, sharing about where you're at is probably going to create deep conversation that will lead into knowing what she needs, knowing who you want to be as a man, and being able to just live into that is going to create a lot of honesty and joy in your home from being open.
Wow. It's incredible. I'm going to come back and listen to this myself. I think it's been an awesome episode. I really appreciate your perspective. And guys, if you have any questions about this, Mo is in the Facebook group. You can go ahead over there, post your questions. It will be getting posted into there. And Mo, again, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Enjoyed it as much as I have. Yeah,
I have.
Well, guys, that's a wrap for the Powerful Man Show. As always, a moment of insight, take action. So until next time, have an amazing day.